Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Bank Shop Breakdown. We're going to go over 5 college basketball games for Monday, November 14th, 2022. If you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your college basketball plays in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are 5 games in college hoops for Monday. First up, we see Butler taking on Penn State. Penn State laying 9.5 points in this one. Totals at 141.5. It's going to be an 8:30 Eastern start time on Fox Sports 1. Now, Penn State's 2-0 to start the season. They beat Winthrop 93-68, and then Loyola Maryland 90-65. So 2 games with 90-plus points. A nice start to the offense for Penn State. Right now ranked 17th in the nation in adjusted offensive efficiency. On the other side, Butler just under 90 points in their first game of the year, an 89-53 win over New Orleans. So both teams shooting the ball very, very well, and I think a little bit unsustainably well. And that's the reason why I like the under in this game. I think there's some value on the under. We saw Butler in its win over New Orleans shoot 80% in their 2-point field goals, 32 of 40. That's just plainly not going to be able to happen. It's unsustainable to do that, especially against a real tough defense in Penn State. And for Penn State, they've been absolutely lights out shooting the basketball. Number 1 in the nation in effective field goal percentage. Number 10 in 3-point percentage. Number 13 in 2-point field goal percentage. It's just not going to be able to. You're not going to be able to hold on to that, throughout the rest of the season. And it's going to be a much tougher defense that Penn State's facing in Butler. They're definitely the toughest matchup they've had yet this season. Penn State does like to work pretty slow, especially on the defensive end. And we've seen that this season already, where they're ranked 323rd in average possession length defensively. But last year on offense, they were ranked 356 in average possession length. So this is a Penn State team that likes to control the tempo, and at home here, being the big favorite, laying the 9.5 points. I do think this is going to be a slower paced game, and I don't think both of these teams are going to be able to shoot as well as they have in the first couple of games of the season. So give me the under 141.5 in Butler, Penn State. Next up, we see Oral Roberts taking on Houston. The Cougars are laying 19 points in this game. Totals at 146.5. Now, I'd love to take the points with Oral Roberts. They've been a fantastic upset Cinderella team last few seasons. A great underdog bet, especially when they made it to their big NCAA tournament run in 2021. They took down Ohio State, took down the Florida Gators, made it to the Sweet 16 as a number 15 seed, and they bring back their number 1 player from that team, and Max Hmas, who is just a unbelievable scorer, one of the best shooters in college basketball. And it's nice to see a guy like that, a talent like Hmas, stick around with his program in Oral Roberts. This is a guy that could certainly play for any Power 5 team he wanted to. But he's sticking with Oral Roberts, and I like to see that. Summit League team, he's giving him another shot, and this is a team that could certainly win the conference yet again and make it back to the big dance. But in this particular game, I just can't get there with Oral Roberts. Just don't love this matchup for him. Houston off to an amazing start to the year. We expected it. This is a very good Houston program, a very good coach in Kelvin Sampson, and Houston's first 2 wins, 83-36, an absolute blowout over Northern Colorado, and then 81-55 over St. Joseph's. A little bit of a step up in competition there against St. Joseph's. Houston top 10 right now in both adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency. They're forcing turnovers. They're not turning the ball over. They're shooting the ball well, and they haven't really shot the ball well from the perimeter yet, and they're still scoring 80-plus points a night. So that's really dangerous. If Houston gets going from the perimeter, starts making those 3-point shots, watch out. They could be scoring 100-plus a night against some of these weaker non-conference opponents. So I like Houston in this game to win it by 20-plus. I'd love to take the points with Oral Roberts. I just can't get there. So give me Houston laying the points. Next up, we see Troy taking on Florida State. The Seminoles laying 10 points in this one. Totals at 139.5. I do think this is a pretty good bounce-back spot for Florida State, laying the points here. I know it's tough to lay the points with the Florida State because of how disappointing they've been this season. 2 losses, 2 upset losses. One to Stetson, where they were double-digit favorites. They lose by 9 points at home. And then the second game, you go on the road to a rival in UCF, and you lose by 14, 68-54. You were out-rebounded in terms of offensive rebounds, 24-7. You're just not going to win games. So if you're 354th in defensive rebounding percentage, but I do think this is a good spot and a good matchup for Florida State because Troy, not a very good offensive team last year. I don't think it's going to be a great offense this year. Probably actually a little bit worse numbers overall. Last year ranked outside the top 250 in adjusted offensive efficiency. They didn't shoot the ball very well. They had big issues in terms of turnovers offensively, ranked 347th in turnover percentage. So this is a good spot for Florida State's defense to flex its muscles a little bit, and that should lead to good offensive opportunities as well. I do think Florida State wins this game going away. I think it's just a really bad spot for Troy playing their first D1 school after 2 subdivision matchups. Give me Florida State laying the points in this one. They need a fired up performance in this game. Next up, we see Wofford taking on Drake. Drake is laying 9.5 points. Total is at 144.5. This is going to be an 8 o'clock Eastern start time on ESPN+. Now, I think for Wofford, in their last game against High Point, it was a disappointing loss, 91-80. The defense struggled, that's for sure. But I do think there were some positive takeaways. And, you lose a game by 11, but you put up 80 points despite shooting sub 30% from three. And we know Wofford, at least in recent years, a team that's known for its perimeter shooting. So if you're still scoring 80 plus and you're not having the best day from the free throw line and the 3-point line, there's promising signs there. You were really sharp in the 2-point range, collecting the offensive glass. You had an advantage there, 17-11. And on defense, you gave up 91 points, but you got to look at High Point's number shooting. They were 11 of 26 from three. You're not going to really see that often. Your defense is not going to be giving up 42.3% from three all season long, even if you have the worst perimeter defense in the nation. So I do think there's some positive, signs for Wofford overall. I like their offense. Their defense needs some work, but you're facing a team in Drake who, yes, they beat up on IUPUI, but IUPUI's got to be a bottom 5 team in the nation in D1 hoops this season. Just a program that's going to be in a rebuild right now. So, yes, it was a nice win. It was a blowout win, but I don't really put too much into that game. And I want to see Drake play, a team like Wofford, and before I'm willing to lay almost 10 points against a team like Wofford. So, even though I do like this Drake team overall, I think they're going to have a solid season. Right now ranked inside the top 75 in KenPom. I just don't think that they are good enough to lay this many points in the game. I think it checks out to be pretty close and a pretty back-and-forth game overall. Wofford's a program that's just been there. They the last decade or so, they've always hung around in conference play and SoCon play. They make, sniffs at an NCAA tournament berth, and I do think that they're going to be able to compete here even in this non-conference spot on the road. So I'm going to take the points here with Wofford. I think their offense does enough here to keep this game close and maybe, just maybe, pull out an upset win. In our final game of the night for Monday's card, we're going to see George Washington taking on Hofstra. Hofstra laying 8 points, and the total is at 151. It's going to be a 7 o'clock Eastern start time. George Washington last year, 12-18 overall. They were 8-9 in conference play, so they were pretty competitive in conference action, but they did lose a good amount of production from last year's team. It wasn't even the most successful team last year, so the expectations really weren't too high going into this season, but they're 2-0 to start the year. They beat a D1 school on the rise in Howard. Howard had definitely had some rough years about 5 years ago in terms of college hoops in the MEAC, but they've improved. I like this Howard roster, so I do think George Washington's win is a pretty impressive one, a 10-point victory, 85-75 in that one. And, Howard, they shot pretty well from the floor. They scored 75 points. They were 54% from 2-point range, but George Washington's defense was able to weather the storm enough, and the offense, 38% from three. They shot well from the free throw line, so I do think there's some positive takeaways for George Washington, especially on the offensive side, where right now they're ranked 10th in the nation in effective field goal percentage, shooting the ball well from 2-point range and 3-point range. The defense still has some question marks, that's for sure, but you're facing a team here in Hofstra that also has a big-time question marks on defense themselves. Last year and so far this year, Hofstra not really worried about the defense. Last year ranked outside the top 200 in adjusted defensive efficiency, and this season so far that's the same case, 249th in the nation in adjusted defensive efficiency. They played some tough teams, Princeton and Iona. They gave up 77 and 78, but neither of those wins by 8+ points, and I think George Washington could be thrown into the mix with those types of programs in Princeton and Iona. I think KenPom, it's not really high on them right now, ranked 209th in KenPom, but I do think they're a little bit better than that. I think George Washington competes in this game. They got some shooters. They've got some experience on the roster as well. And I think they're going to keep this one close. It should be a high-scoring game. We see a total at 151 for a reason. But I think in a game like this, it sets up to be back and forth. 8 points, just too many. So give me the points here with George Washington to end the night. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday, November 14th. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your college basketball plays in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can always find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.